Hello, this is Robert Guillaume. Thank you for joining me on Your Money, Manage It. I will be discussing principles that will empower you to manage your finances made easy. Thank you for joining me. Today is part one of an episode I'm entitling Planning for Retirement. Next week, we will do part two of this series. I think this is extremely important for millions of individuals as we enter this new year of 2023. Millions of individuals will ask, well, how much money will I need when I retire? Valid question, an important question, a serious question. But we must realize there are many variables that go into answering that question. Now, some retirement planners and some financial advisors will try to seek and put a dollar amount in place when answering that question. However, a static dollar figure is difficult when we're speaking of retirement. I do think it is very important, as our guest last week mentioned, for individuals to start planning for retirement as soon as possible. Jay mentioned start with your first job. So planning for retirement is vital even when you are young. Well, let's do a comparison. Let's compare this new year of 2023 with, let's say, a few years back. We'll just pick a date, 2018. Well, this new year is facing 8% plus inflation, somewhere in the vicinity of $3 to $4 per gallon gasoline, food costs that are expensive. The costs for goods and services have risen to high numbers. Medical and pharmaceutical costs are rising, while some investment earnings have decreased. We're also facing interest rates that are now rising for the first time significantly in several years. This affects buying a home or a condominium or renting an apartment. So if you're retiring in 2023, you're facing different financial needs than someone may have faced in the year 2018. So I think when we look at retirement, at whatever age, we have to ask certain questions. First of all, 4 questions that I would propose. Number 1, do you have a pension plan or a retirement income from entities such as a government career or a career in the educational field or a military career or some other retirement pension or retirement plan? I mention that because retirement plans, pension plans are becoming dinosaurs in our society. They're just not as affluent as they were years ago. Sadly, many corporations and businesses have ended pension plans and retirement plans for their employees. And we have been encouraged more and more to invest in retirement programs such as a 403B or a 401k, which are, as we know, fluctuating currently in their returns. So I would ask, do you have a savings program? It can be just a simple bank savings account, but do you have a savings? Do you have CDs that perhaps you've invested money in? Do you have IRAs or Roth IRAs? Do you have rental properties that might provide income or some other aspects of earning? The option of additional earnings, such as a business, a farm, or property, can be huge when you look at retirement. Now, some major retirement considerations that you need to ask yourself are, what is your expected lifestyle when you retire? Are you a conservative individual by nature, or are you someone who enjoys a lavish lifestyle? This is going to affect the bottom dollar on how much will you need when you retire. Are you prone to just spending a lot of money? The other question would be, how is your health? We know that health costs are expensive. Pharmaceuticals are expensive. So a person in predominantly good health will have less of an expense factor than someone who is dealing with conditions and health issues. What do you hope to do when you retire, as far as, do you want to travel? Do you have hobbies? Or do you have other pursuits that you would like to, venture into when you retire? And then you have to go back to an early podcast of mine where I asked the question, what about wants versus needs? When you retire, what do you want versus what do you picture you need? Is a new automobile in the cards when you retire? Cell phones, computers, tablets, other devices. A fact that was stated by Emmy Martin of CNBC is the following. 20% of Americans do not have any of their income saved for retirement. 21% of Americans have less than 5% saved, and 25% have only 6 to 10% saved for retirement. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those are scary figures. That indicates Americans simply do not plan well for their retirement. Go Banking rates have stated that the average American has less than $5,000 saved. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, is millions of Americans have no plan for managing their personal finances. And that not only affects the present, but it definitely affects the future, and meaning retirement. Americans currently face huge debts, trillions of dollars in debts, and we've discussed this previously, and credit card debts and automobile loans and student loans and mortgages and on and on. Americans by nature are a fairly unhealthy society, and we have amassed huge medical expenses. And as we have mentioned previously, Americans enjoy living beyond their financial means. Now, when it comes to planning for retirement, we definitely know the fact that early years in our life, the early working years, can be difficult financially for a young family. A young family finds themselves with a new baby, or new babies, plural. They're moving toward finding a new home, maybe their first home. They have a car or car payments, student loan payments, credit card debt that's been built up. And sometimes young people take an attitude of, I'm just going to kind of live for the moment. Everything's fine and hunky-dory and all is well and life is good and I'm just living for the moment. And wants sometimes overshadow needs. A lot of young families find themselves in that dilemma, and then it becomes living paycheck to paycheck. There needs to be planning there needs to be financial management. If you're looking down the road, and that down the road might be 40 years, it may be 20 years, but looking toward retirement, there must be planning in order to successfully retire with the finances needed to sustain you in those later years. Social Security, big question mark. The age-old question on the availability of Social Security looms present in all retirement discussions. I hear individuals of all ages discussing, will Social Security retirement be there for me? Well, you can't worry about that aspect. However, I have read data, statistical, futuristic outlays that talk about both Medicare and Social Security as being on a possible government timeline. Now, is that timeline 5 years from today, 25 years from today? I don't know. I'm not privy to that information, but I think it is wise, if you're young and listening to this podcast, that you begin planning now for 40 years from now. I think if you are middle-aged, you need to start definitely putting together a retirement portfolio plan. And if you're nearing retirement, pack everything into those programs that will sustain your retirement finances. When I say that, everything you can put toward increasing your Social Security is a positive. Everything that you can put toward a diversified retirement portfolio, 403b, 401, those are all positives. Fact is, Social Security is with us today. Hopefully it will be here 20 years from now, but there's uncertainty in looking at the distant future. Currently, the average Social Security check in America is less than $1,500 a month. For someone who has no pension plan and who has not prepared for retirement, when you look at a figure of $1,500 a month and realize that from that $1,500 a month, there needs to be rent or some payment for housing, there needs to be perhaps insurance payments for auto insurance and so forth. Perhaps a vehicle is paid for, but there's maintenance. There are food costs. There are utility costs, and it goes on and on. $1,500 in this day and age can be chewed up quickly. Keep in mind that from a Social Security check or from a Social Security gross amount, the federal government is going to deduct not only federal taxes, but nearly $150, $160 for what is known as Part B Medicare. Folks, just do the math. You take an individual living on solely Social Security, subtract taxes, subtract the Part B payment. Look at our inflationary rate today. Look at the cost of groceries. Look at the cost of utilities. Look at the cost of our gasoline and so forth. Quite honestly, there is very little remaining in the kitty. What's the answer? The answer is planning. Another question, well, how do I plan? Well, we're going to be discussing that specific aspect in the next episode. But I am here to close this short episode by telling you of part one, planning for retirement. Retirement will come quickly. If you're 25 years old, it looks like eons of time will go by before you retire, but it comes quickly. If you're in your 40s, retirement is around the corner. And if you're older than that, retirement becomes a reality. Please take this advice. Plan at whatever age, plan for your retirement. Retirement can be enjoyable. Believe me, personal testimony. I love being retired. I'm not totally retired, as you can tell by this podcast, but I love my retirement. And one reason for that, my wife and I planned, and we were blessed to be able to stand back and say, we can retire without a lot of worry. We weren't born with silver spoons in our mouth. We weren't given $1 million by parents and that sort of thing. No. We had careers. We planned, and that planning is, well, it's just a blessing when you retire. So my advice, if you're listening, whatever age you may be, start planning for your retirement. Tune in next Monday because we're going to do some specific honing in on how to plan. Thank you for joining me today. Have a good day. Thank you for joining me on Your Money, Manage It. My book, How to Manage Personal Finances Made Easy and Avoiding the College Debt Trap, can be found on Amazon and the bookshop. I will also include the link in the description of this episode. Find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and join me again next Monday. Thank you for listening.